Hello, and welcome to Psyched, a podcast where we discuss all things psych, the hit USA TV show. From hidden pineapples to crazy nicknames, come on son and join the fun. If you are a fan of delicious flavor, and I've heard it both ways, this is for you. I'm Keaton, your host, also known as Sean Gus Psych on Instagram, link in the description. I started watching a few seasons in, live on TV, and since then, I have seen every episode at least twice. Today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 1. The episode starts with a flashback to 1986. Young Sean and Henry, his police dad, are eating in a diner. Sean is told to close his eyes and recall certain things about the diner, which letter in the exit sign is out, the X, what color the seats are, maroon, the manager's name, and how many hats. This training of sorts is how Sean becomes hyper-observant when he's older. Fast forward to 2006, we see Sean as an adult. He spends his time watching local news, using his skills he learned growing up to call in tips about various crimes to the police. After many tips, the police decide to question him. This is where we meet head detective Carlton Lassiter, who believes Sean is an actual suspect for some of these crimes. Upon arriving, he meets this cop who believes in spirits. This gives Sean the idea to tell Lassiter that he's psychic. It was that or jail. Next, we meet the chief of police, who actually gives Sean a case to solve. Sean gets his best friend, Burton Guster, a pharmaceutical salesman, to be his partner. Camden McCallum Jr. and his dog were kidnapped. He's the son of a huge billionaire. Sean and Gus try to figure out how to be psychic detectives, all while trying to solve the case. Malcolm Orso, a childhood friend, and Camden McCallum Jr. were working together. Camden's dad, Camden McCallum Sr., tried to help his son and pay a ransom. Malcolm scammed him for money. He eventually figures out where they are and confronts them, accidentally killing them. Panicked, he covers his tracks by making it look like a suicide. Camden McCallum Jr.'s dog bites him at the scene, and that's how Sean and Gus solve the crime. Camden McCallum Sr. was responsible for killing them. He had dog bite medicine in his house, and the dog had blood on his teeth. What I liked in this episode, everything mostly. I love how they introduce young Sean and show how he got his gift. They showed off Lassie, his first partner, really well. She hated Sean in the beginning, but I feel he grew on her. Even though Juliet is awesome for the rest of the show as Lassie's second partner, we see that in episode 2, it would have been interesting to see their relationship develop. The crime was great, with a murder that was made to look like a suicide, and involving the dog was genius. Of course he was going to bite the guy who killed his owner. Plus, he was cute too. Gus had my favorite line of the whole episode. There's going to be a forensics... I can't even say it. He did it so well. There's going to be forensics, guys. Gotta watch it. Buzz McNabb is also introduced and is a great character. What I disliked. The first scene we see with present-day Sean. What was the point of the woman? They could have just showed Sean watching the news by himself. Maybe they wanted to make it more exciting. Okay. It's a little introduction. Let's go to the I Know You Know segment. This is all the actors and what they've been in. So James Roday, who plays Sean Spencer. Currently, he's in a show called A Million Little Things. He's one of the main people. Dulé Hill, Burton Guster. He was in West Wing before this show, and he was also in the movie Holes, which there's a reference to Holes later on in the show, in a different episode. And now he's currently in a show called Suits. Tim Amundsen, who plays Carlton Lassiter, He is now in This Is Us, only 5 episodes. And before this, he was in a movie on Disney Channel called Luck of the Irish, which I actually watched when I was a kid. Maggie Lawson. So I added her in because I mentioned her, but she's only in starting in the 2nd episode. She doesn't come in until the 2nd episode, but she is Detective O'Hara, Juliet O'Hara. She is in a show called Outmatched right now, currently. I watched a few episodes. It's pretty good. She tried to create a show with Jane Lynch, who is the chief's sister in the Coast Guard on this show, called Angel from Hell, but it was sadly canceled. Before Psyched, she was in 1 episode of Boy Meets World, and a few other things. Corbin Burnson. Before this, he was in L.A. Law, the main star, a TV show. Kristen, I'm terrible with saying that name. Nelson. She's the chief. She was in 2 episodes of This Is Us recently. Before Psyched, she was in Boy Meets World, 1 episode. The Fugitive, I think that's a movie, and 1 episode of West Wing. And, sorry, I was thinking, West Wing was Dulay's show. He was in many episodes of that before Psych. So Patricia Adelet, however you say that, was a desk sergeant. Sorry. She was the one who believed in spirits. She, before this, was in the movie She's the Man. She was a science teacher. So Anne Dudek was Lassie's first partner. She's now in Mad Men, and she was also in How I Met Your Mother, which I like that show a lot. She plays Natalie for 2 episodes, one of Ted's friends. Okay, so Sage Brocklebank, I didn't recognize him from anything, and he's not in much. So there's that. So, Don, gotta pronounce these names right. Don S. Davis. He was Camden McCallum Sr. He was in 1 episode of West Wing, Dulay's main show. And then Corbin's main show, L.A. Law, he was 1 episode, all before Psych. Jason Bryden, Camden McCallum Jr. He's been in 1 episode of Suits since Psych, which is Dulay's now main show. Okay. So Mark Itchson was the guy who beat up his ex-girlfriend's car or something in the first scene at the police station. And he was in Elf. He's the mailroom guy, one of them. And before Psych. And also before Psych, he was in She's the Man, groundskeeper, which also I mentioned that Patricia was in She's the Man as a science teacher. Now we go to the segment I've Heard It Both Ways, which we talk about the plot holes in the episode. In this episode, Sean and Gus mentioned the Cinnamon Festival like they've been there before. But in the episode later on called Dual Spires, they act like they've never heard of it. Also, big plot hole, the whole police station. This is a random building they used for the first episode, and later on, it is totally different. They change it for basically the rest of the show after this one. And next segment, not many plot holes. Next segment called, Are You a Fan of Delicious Flavor? Every week on Instagram, I ask people to tell me where the pineapple is in a specific episode. The fastest person to reply and be correct gets a shout out here. This week, it was at e.b.art4. They said, on top of the fridge, should I slice this up for the road? That's what Sean says. It's great. So, the next segment is Behind the Scenes with Steve Franks, who's the creator of the show. So on the DVDs, if you buy them, Steve Franks and a few other people will watch the episode and do a voiceover and talk about whatever happens while filming and other extra stuff. So for this episode, the first one, I just wrote down a few things that I enjoyed. So in the first scene, in the diner, in the flashback, the chevrons or emblems on Henry are upside down. The first police station was actually an old army building. Steve said it was super cold and it inspired the episode Scary Sherry because it felt like an insane asylum. The whole show was shot in Vancouver, Canada, even though it was said to take place in Santa Barbara, California. And for the theme song, Steve Franks actually has a band, and he wrote and sang the song. So, Tim Amundsen's Lassie, his audition scene was him interrogating Sean. Sean wanted to have facial hair, James, but the network did not like that. So Buzz McNabb's wedding date is Dule Hill's birthday. Okay, so then we go to James and Dule's audition scene. Sean and Gus was the first scene in Gus's office. So for most of the show, gotta work on not saying so. But this is the first episode, just a trial. The show used fake palm trees, and Vancouver, Canada did get cold, so you could see their breath in some of the scenes. Okay, so Camden McCallum Sr., he has this huge apartment and mansion. It's actually a mansion, not an apartment. And we see Sean going into Gus's apartment, Gus waking up, scared, and then the pineapple happens. His apartment is actually in that mansion, that first apartment he has. Okay, I think that's all the behind the scenes I wrote. Yep. So the last segment, pop references. So Gus goes into a thrift store to take a bag. The bag Sean thinks is where the ransom money was, stored. And the guy threatens to call the cops, like the owner or something. And and asks Gus if he's been to jail. And Gus says, once in Monopoly. So Monopoly is a pop reference. And I've actually never played Monopoly because I prefer life, with the cars and the people, and you get married and have kids. But have you ever played the real game of life? It is a spin-off of the classic Life, but you can have sex and do drugs. It's crazy fun. That's another favorite of mine. Okay, I think that's the only pop reference. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Psyched, the podcast. And next week, I will have a microphone, and I'm hopefully going to add in some music in between these segments. And each segment might go out of order every episode because of how I take notes. So be surprised for that. And goodbye. Happy New Year.